The end of the Spade Kingdom arc is near, but the question is, where do we go from here? Truthfully, I don't see a scenario where we just beat Lucifero and the Second Gate Devil and just head back home just to fight again another time. At this point in the story, it's time to move along with the story where devils become more of a staple, because if not now, then when? We don't need another repetitive arc chasing down the enemy and stopping them from manifesting into the human world. Whatever is about to happen, it's going to create a scenario where we can dive into the devil story even more without having another repetitive arc involving Yami and Vaughn just needing to be saved again. So what could it be? Well, let's take a trip down memory lane. Remember Lolo Pechka said when 90% of the continent would be destroyed if the Dark Triad succeeded with their plan? That sounds like the apocalypse to me. And with Lucifero here at 50%, is that where we're heading in the future if he fully manifests? To me, Tabata ain't really built like that from what I've seen, but there is an alternative that involves the devils, and it's the Underworld. So an Underworld arc, or the Apocalypse, or even both. Which do you prefer? Let's talk about the benefits of both. Now, before we begin, if you're a returning viewer and you haven't already, be sure to turn on notifications so that you can be notified when a new Black Clover video drops. And if you're a new viewer, welcome. I hope you find this channel to your likings. Alright, let's begin. So first, we're going to talk about an Underworld arc. I'm going to cover 5 things we can get out of it. The 5 topics are exploring the Underworld, filling the seat for King of the Underworld, training with Megicula, a civil war in hell, and fighting the Qliphoth devils in hell. The Underworld is full of mysteries that are eventually going to be explored in Black Clover, but by who? Who's the one person in the Black Clover world who gives us the best option to explore the Underworld while keeping the attention on the protagonist? It's Asta, of course. If we're going to dive into an arc surrounding the Underworld, then the focus will of course be through Asta's perspective. Now, as to how Asta gets to the Underworld, well, this is my favorite prediction that I've mentioned on multiple occasions on this channel, and once again, I'm going to briefly mention it again because damn it, I am going to die with this prediction. So the theory was Asta and Libe is going to die in this fight and be reborn in the Underworld as one being. This will be a human-devil hybrid named Astaroth. I'll leave a link to the video in the description so you can watch and get the full picture of what I mean. But let's talk about what we can potentially get out of an Underworld arc, starting with number 1 and the most obvious, exploring the Underworld. Just what the hell do these sickos do down there other than beat up devils weaker than them? Is there some kind of order, council? Is there military leadership? What's the weather like? Does it vary within every level? In Divine Comedy, for Dante's Inferno, there are levels in the Underworld where it's raining, stormy, or hot as hell, no pun intended, or freezing cold like the final level where Lucifero was held. I guess we can also add the Supreme Devils trying to find ways to manifest their body into the human world, like we've seen from Megicula and Lucifero through Libe. Another thing I want to know is how devils are born in the Underworld and what happens to the souls that get sent to the Underworld. But anyways, exploring the Underworld would be my number 1. Number 2, let's say Asta and Libe are reborn in the Underworld by whatever means, and Lucifero is still in the human world fucking shit up. So basically, Lucifero and Asta swapped places. Now Asta and Libe are in the Underworld, and Lucifero is now in the human world. So if Lucifero is gone, there's going to be a power vacuum in hell with the King of the Underworld gone, and now the seat is up for grabs. So who's going to fill the seat? Well, it will be filled by no one. The power vacuum is going to instead lead to a civil war. A civil war that will be started by Asta. But before that happens, Asta's going to have to gain a better understanding on his new body. But who can help him with that? That leads me to number 3. Megicula will help Asta become more accustomed to his new body. Now, in my Asta and Libe Will Die video, I mentioned that Asta lacks the knowledge on speaking devil language, and I also mentioned that Megicula would teach him in exchange for Asta teaching her about human emotions, which is something that she was actually interested in as she was defeated in the Noel versus Megicula fight. So the whole point of this reason is to not only introduce Megicula back into the story while picking up where she left off about being interested in human emotions, but to develop Astaroth and his anti-magic to a point where he can do what I'm about to say next in my next reason, which is lead a civil war in hell as reason number 4. So how would Osteroth lead a civil war, you may be thinking? Well, for starters, in demonology, Osteroth has his own legion of devils and has 4 high-ranking devils under his command. In Black Clover, they could be that or supreme devils. So what I'm saying is, Osteroth in Black Clover would acquire the same thing in the Underworld. In demonology, I know Lucifer has a group known as the Lucifer Six, with Lucifugus as the commander. Then there's the Order of Fly, led by Beelzebub. I don't know who the Time Devil is, but there's a chance he has his own army as well. But since Lucifero is gone, then Beelzebub and the Time Devil may attempt to claim the throne. So the Civil War would be a 3-way fight between Osteroth, Beelzebub, and the Time Devil along with their legions. A war in hell. Sounds interesting to me. So if Osteroth is going to oppose the 2 rulers, then he would need an army of his own. But the big question is, what level would Asta be reborn on? Well, I convinced myself it would be whatever level Megicula is on, for the reason I stated earlier. But the one thing about Osteroth having no magic is that he would be able to pass through every level, so he could freely move through each level of the Underworld. But could he destroy the gates so that others could move with him? Does anti-magic hold that potential? Maybe. But reason number 4 involves a civil war in hell, which also leads to my 5th reason. Reason number 5 involves cutting down the numbers of the Qliphoth devils while in the Underworld. Since Osteroth has no magic, he would be able to move through each level previously mentioned and fight the supreme devils that are located in the Underworld, right? This would allow for a new way to introduce Qliphoth devils without keeping the gates running, and also deal with them before entering the human world, because if Lucifero does manifest completely, then I think the focus will be on him and the other rulers down the line once they make it back to the human world. So imagine the supreme devils for level 3 through 5 or 3 through 4 getting dealt with in the Underworld by Osteroth. So to sum that up, my 5 reasons for an Underworld arc being next would be exploring the Underworld, filling the seat for King of the Underworld or attempting it, training with Megicula, a civil war in hell, and fighting the Qliphoth devils in hell. Those are my 5 reasons as to why an Underworld arc can keep the focus on the devils while potentially alternating with what I'm about to say next, the apocalypse in the human world. Now, I don't know if you guys ever heard of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. You probably have, but these 4 individuals are going to bring about destruction to the world. Don't you think it's ironic that Lolo Pechka said that the Dark Triad succeeding would lead to 90% of the continent being destroyed, and now you have not 3 but 4 Zogradis. So the 4 horsemen could be relating to the 4 Zograti siblings in Black Clover after they're reborn with their undying bodies. Although I also thought about these 4 becoming like the God Hand for Black Clover in another video that I also talked about. I'll leave a link in the description for that as well. If you read the Berserk manga, then you would know that the members of the God Hands were once human, and they were reborn as demonic supreme beings, which I believe the 4 Zogratis will end up something like that, going from humans into their new undying bodies. So what does that mean for Black Clover, for the Black Clover world? Because Tabata has shown in the current timeline he ain't willing to kill people that are relevant, at least for now. There's still 2 mysterious diamond soldiers that are lurking in the kingdom. I made a video speculating that they're taking care of an important task involving the 4 Zogratis. I'll leave a link in the description. You should check that out as well. Now, if the 4 Zogratis return in this arc with their undying bodies, then I predict that the apocalypse will involve the 4 Zogratis carrying out their plan to eradicate humanity by spreading to the 4 kingdoms to attempt to destroy it, which will lead to the other 3 kingdoms going to war. And I'm assuming that the new triads, the 4 triads body will be powerful and unstoppable enough to carry that out. Plus, they will be immortal. So yeah, they should be pretty capable of doing just that. But of course, they're going to be met with force by the 3 other kingdoms. As to what Lucifero is going to be doing during that time, well, I'll make a separate video for that. But if there is an apocalypse and an Underworld arc in the future, then I can see Tabata alternating between the 2 events in the future. Alright, that's it for me. Let me know what you think about it in the comment. Would you rather move towards an arc showing like Black Clover's own apocalypse, or some sort of eclipse like from Berserk, or an Underworld arc, or maybe all three. Who knows? That's it for me. Peace out.